What's going on, guys? My name is Austin. This is the Bodies in Business podcast. And today we're going to talk about goal setting because it's the beginning of the year and goals can be really, really fun to dive into. And they also can be super frustrating. So I did a deep dive into the best way to set your goals for the upcoming year because I want to have great goals going into the new year. And it's important to kind of set your North Star for what you really want to do, because we're going to find out from a guy named Andrew Huberman that when you have a goal and you can actually see exactly what you want to do, you are more likely to reach that goal. Now, there are going to be three different styles of goal setting in this podcast. And I think it's going to be helpful for different types of people. I am going to use actually all three when I set my goals for the year. And I have kind of used these styles, but I'm going to jump into those three styles and then we're going to deep dive each style. So the first style of goal setting that I'll say is MT goals. And that's MT stands for measurable and time bound. And that comes from the Manager Tools podcast. Two guys at the Manager Tools podcast are Mark Horstman and Mike Azuzin. And they are both graduates from the West Point Academy, United States military. And they use MT goals because they like to keep things simple, and so do I. So whenever they did a podcast all about MT goals, and it's a 3-part podcast, but I will put the link to all the entire podcast that breaks down the 3 parts of MT goals in this right below in the show notes for this, so that you can just go listen to that podcast. It's about an hour and a half, but they do a big deep dive into what MT goals are. And that's the simplest way to basically set your goals for the year. And I want to explain what an MT goal is. So they say it needs to be measurable and it needs to be time bound. And measurable and time bound means, I'll give you an example. Setting a measurable goal would be, I want to walk 8,000 steps today. And then the time bound would be today. So measurable, you can actually measure the amount of steps. I have a watch that measures the amount of steps I take. And then time bound means I have a 24-hour period, or I guess it's 16-hour period when I'm awake to reach my step goal. Okay, so that's measurable and time bound, and you can do that with any goal that you want to set for yourself. And I think that's the easiest way to really approach goal setting because it doesn't have any fluff in it. A lot of times they talk about in their podcast of SMART goals. And, SMART goals have been, it's a good acronym and it sounds fun and catchy. But when you start getting into like some minutia and like things here and there that maybe don't make sense, like, is it, attainable or is it realistic, those types of things, then you start getting a little bit of like fuzziness on what you want to do. Whereas if you just do the measurable and the time bound piece, if you either hit your goal or you got close to hitting your goal, and you can assess how you did afterwards. And then you can adapt and make that measurable and time bound goal better to fit the next time you try to do it. And the reason why I love that MT goal for a step goal on a daily step goal is because each day if you hit your goal, your daily goal. And so then if you have a goal of hitting like 150 miles in a month, then each day if you're getting closer and closer to that goal. So it really can help you break down your goals into mini goals and then try to hit an overarching goal. So like you can have a big MT goal that you can break down into sub MT goals that help you reach that big goal. So that's number one. That's the first way. And like I said, if you really want to deep dive these MT goals, go listen to their podcast. It's really, really good. And this is the easiest form of setting goals. Now, the next 2 sets of ways to set your goals that can play into setting your goals, I used Andrew Huberman's goal setting podcast to really help me formulate why we set goals and what can make us reach our goals. And he deep dives the brain and different neurotransmitters and hormones and stuff like that explain how and why we want to get to our goals and the easier ways to do that. And then the third one, I'll deep dive Andrew Huberman's too, but the third one was with Graham Weaver. And I say this is more of the woo-woo type of goal setting. And he uses more of, you want to listen to your heart type of goal setting instead of always listening to your head, because your head is going to try to talk you out of what your heart really desires. So I want to deep dive both of those because I believe that knowing a little bit about our biology is going to help us understand why you need to do certain things to help you reach your goal. And that's not to say you can't, kind of put all three of those styles together, which I'm doing because I think they all are all helpful when you're trying to set goals for the year. But it's great to understand that understanding how your biology works really helps you know how to set attainable goals. So let's dive into a little bit of what Andrew Huberman talks about in his How to Set and Achieve Goals podcast. So first, he breaks down like the 4 different areas of the brain that go into setting goals. And that is the amygdala and that is what touches on anxiety and fear, your ventral striatum, which is the basal ganglia, and it is your go and no-go circuits, action or inaction. And then he talks about the lateral and prefrontal cortex, so your executive function. And then he talks about orbital prefrontal cortex, which talks about emotionality. So I'm not going to get into that stuff because I'm not an expert in there. But what really I found fascinating was his breaking down of the elements of goal setting and pursuit. And he talks about the 3 things you need when you're getting a good goal and wanting to pursue that goal. You need to identify a specific thing that you want to attain. You need to assess the progress that you're making. And then you need to have some type of goal execution, like you hit your goal. So when we talk about, I like to use the daily step goal as a great goal to have and to really break down is identify a specific goal you want to attain. I want to hit 8,000 steps today from walking. Okay, we identified the goal and then assess the progress. Throughout the day, I can check my watch to see if I'm hitting or getting close to hitting that goal. If it is in the morning, I like to take about a 15 to 30 minute walk. So I get about, 100 or 1,500 to 3,000 steps in the morning. And so after about 9 a.m., I'm almost halfway to my goal. So I feel comfortable that I can actually hit that 8,000 step mark if I'm around 4,000 to 5,000 steps around midday. Now, if I haven't walked at all and it's noon, 1, 2 o'clock, and I have like maybe 500 to 1,000 steps, I'm like, okay, I need to get going. I need to get moving if I want to hit my 8,000 steps. So it's a good way to assess your progress with a step goal. And when you think about other things like that, when it comes to, for me, I wanted to get at least 10 teams for the Fly Bodies Mileage Challenge. Well, that means I have to reach out to people and ask them if they want to do a Fly Bodies Mileage Challenge. Well, if I give myself 2 weeks, so time bound, 2 weeks to get these people in the beginning, if halfway mark, I only have 2 or 3 teams, then I'm going to have to reach out to a lot more people in that second week in order to hit my 10 team goal. Now that's just an example, just to give you a different kind of flavor on not just the step goal. The step goal is the I like, but okay. Going in, so some of the quotes from the podcast that I really liked was when people focus their attention on the goal line, they are much more effective in reaching those goals. They achieve them with the perception that they expended less effort. Now, the reason why we want to make a goal is so we can focus on that thing, right? If we're vague about our goals, or if we don't have a specific goal, it's hard to hone in on something that is vague and non-specific. And another quote I like from the podcast was, when you focus on a specific location, or a thing or a goal, your blood pressure goes up, your body releases low levels of adrenaline, and adrenaline further readies you for action. So having something that's very vague, you can't focus your attention on it, right? And I think that's important because a lot of times we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. We don't want to say, oh, we're going to do this thing and not do it. So it's a little scary. And it can be, like I said, it can be scary to set a goal that you may not hit, because you're putting some pressure on yourself and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to do this thing. And if you don't do it, maybe you feel a little bad. But the good thing about that is you want to make these goals, you want to break them down as small as possible so that early on you can get that feedback if you can hit that goal or not. Like if you said I want to walk 150 miles in 1 month, but you didn't break it down to the number of steps that you need to walk in a certain day, and halfway through the month you only had like 50 miles, you're like, oh crap, like I need to get my 100 miles in this back half of in the next 2.5 weeks, or I'm not going to hit my goal. Whereas if you break it down and you say, I want to walk 150 miles, that means you need to walk 5 miles a day. So then every day you can say, okay, if I hit my 5 mile goal, can't speak, then I hit that 5 days in a row, then I'm on track to hit my 150 miles in 30 days. So it's really cool when you think about these big goals. If you can't break your big goal down into mini goals, then you probably need to make your bigger goal a little less further out and smaller so that you can break it down further so that you understand what it takes to get there. Because a lot of times we say, you know what, I want to run a marathon. Well, that's a pretty far out goal if you've never run a marathon before. So you need to break it down into micro goals. Okay. And then one piece of Andrew Huberman's podcast, which I really enjoyed, was, does visualization work? And a lot of times people say you need to visualize yourself like achieving the goal, but research shows that visualizing failure can almost double the likelihood of successfully reaching your goal, which is kind of counterintuitive to what we really think. We're like, if we envision ourselves like winning the medal or getting the job or, I don't know, making a great dinner for our family, we are more likely to achieve that goal. But research shows that if you actually visualize yourself not getting the medal, not getting the job, or, failing to make dinner for your family, the actual feeling of not being able to do that is so big that it makes you actually want to work harder to achieve those goals, which is interesting because it's like, oh, I don't like, they always talk about how people that hate to lose are actually more competitive than people that love to win. And they say like Michael Jordan and, people like that were always like, I hate losing more than I love winning. And so when you think about that statement, you go, oh, that makes sense that those types of people were more successful because they thought about failure more. They didn't want to lose instead of saying, oh, I love to win, right? So now when we actually talk about how to make your goals, this goes back to even the MT goals. You're going to be like, okay, how can I make a goal that's going to be big enough so that I feel compelled to do it, but small enough to where I actually can complete the goal? All right. So Andrew Huberman says it needs to be significant, inspirational, and aggressive yet realistic. Okay. So the probability of achieving that goal goes up depending on how easy, moderate, or impossible it really is. Because if you make a goal that says, I want to walk 5,000 steps this year, and you've only walked 1,000 steps in a year, that's a pretty unattainable goal unless you like drop everything that you're doing in life and just focus on that, which you probably can't do. It needs to be significant. So it needs to be a little bigger or tougher than you've done something before. And then it needs to be inspirational. So it needs to be something that you are excited to do, right? And if you're not excited to do it, then you're probably not going to wake up each morning saying like, oh, like I really want to do this. You're probably like, I can do it or not do it. All right. Now he dives into this molecule. The next thing you want to talk about is dopamine. And I know we're shifting to dopamine just because dopamine is the molecule of motivation. It's not just all about pleasure and reward. And dopamine is actually going to help you reach your goals throughout the year. And the reason why is because there was this rat study done a while back. There was this rat study done where they took a rat and they took out their dopamine receptors in their brain, and they wanted to see if dopamine was all about pleasure and reward, or if it was about other things as well. So they gave this rat the ability to still eat food and feel pleasure, and they took the dopamine receptors out of its brain, and it still ate and it still wanted pleasure. And so they were like, okay, well, why would the rat want to still eat food if the dopamine receptors? Well, that means dopamine isn't just, or what they found was they took the rat and moved it one rat's length away from the food, and the rat wouldn't move. It wouldn't move at all to go get the food that it would give it pleasure. And so what they found out was dopamine is not just about pleasure and reward. It's about motivation and wanting to reach something and wanting to reach your goal. right? So if you don't have any dopamine in your system, you're not going to have the ability to recruit yourself to go do something. And there are many ways that you can improve your dopamine, and there are many ways you can do it naturally: working out, eating healthy, eating food that's high in tyrosine, getting good sleep, and having good relationships. Those 4 things actually are really, really helpful when it comes to boosting dopamine. So working out is a great way to boost your dopamine naturally. And that's why I love focusing on movement when it comes to goal setting. When we get up and we move and we do things, we feel more motivated to go reach our goals. Our world is very, very sedentary these days. We spend, upwards of 8 to 9 hours seated throughout the day. And, it's just the way our world has just turned into being productive, since we all usually like to be on computers or on TVs or on our phones and stuff like that. And even people that play video games. We are a sedentary society, and we need to understand that we have to take action in order to go work these days. Now, not everybody has a sedentary job. Some people still have jobs where they're on their feet and they're moving around a lot. And that's awesome. But people who don't have jobs that allow them to move a lot need to actively get up and move around to create more dopamine in their system. Because when we sit and we're stale and we're not doing anything, we don't recruit as much dopamine in our body. That doesn't mean you need to move all the time throughout the day. Doesn't mean that. It just means that we need to move a little more throughout the day, because that could be a reason why you don't have as much dopamine production in your body, is that we're just so sedentary. All right. So, and that was pretty much the last thing that Huberman talked about, was dopamine and how important dopamine is when it comes to reaching our goals. So that's why I love having wellness goals, is because it's going to usually get us up and moving and produce more dopamine. So then you're going to even feel more motivated to reach other goals in your life, because you have that motivation and drive to want to do more. And it's going to help you reach other goals at work, in your family, and just with friends in your life. It's not just about wellness. That dopamine helps you do other fun goals as well. All right. So recapping the top 4 things that Andrew Huberman said when it comes to goal setting is: it wants to be challenging but possible. You want to plan concretely. So the MT goals, have those manageable and timely goals. Plan concretely. Foreshadow failure. That's number 3. And then focus on our particular points. Okay, so when you're setting a goal, try to remember those 4 things. And I want to talk about the focus on particular points. Is a lot of times we'll have like a million different goals in our head or written down. Whereas if you spread yourself too thin and you don't focus on a singular goal, or on a few goals, or just one goal, then you're going to be scatterbrained, and it's possible that you might not reach any of the goals. And I know you can't just focus on like one thing in your life. Like, you have a lot of things. You have work, family, and wellness that you want to do. But in those areas of life, you don't want to create too many goals, because then you're just going to be thinking about way too many things. Whereas for me this year, I'll tell you, one of my focus goals for Fly Bodies is I am building a mileage club for Fly Bodies this year. And I want to focus on getting as many people in that mileage club as possible. And I've set a goal for myself to get 10,000 people in that mileage club. Now, how I do that is going to be, I'm going to break it down into month by month. We're going to have mileage challenges every other month to try to get people into that mileage club. And then I'm also going to ask people to ask others to get people in that mileage club. Now, I will do an assessment on what was very helpful for me to get more people into that mileage club as we go throughout the year. And I will assess each month how many people actually join the mileage club. So then I'll have an understanding of like 10,000 was a good number, or 10,000 was not nearly a big enough number. So that's going to help me. I'm really, really honing in on mileage challenges and mileage clubs this year. And so that's going to be my focus, my particular point of my goal, because it's going to help me just reach that goal for Fly Bodies, right? And people ask me kind of what my wellness goal is. I had a buddy of mine ask me last night what my wellness goals are for the year. Honestly, my wellness goal is to not get injured. I feel like I'm in a place in my life where I have a really good workout routine. I want to get great sleep. So I want to go to bed. I do have a sleep goal. I want to be in bed by 10 o'clock every night. And so I'll actually get to check that off if I'm in bed by 10 o'clock every night, because I usually get up around 7 or I get up at 5:15 to go work out. So I want to get at least 7 hours of sleep. Sleep is very important to me. So that's a goal of mine that I'll be introducing to my life, is how many times can I get in bed before 10 o'clock? Right? So that means I have to brush my teeth at 9:30 so that I can be in bed by 10 o'clock. So like, that's a very specific thing for me. But for yourself, if you know you wake up at a certain time and you want to get a certain amount of sleep, then you need to say, I need to be in bed at this time. That doesn't mean you're going to get up. Doesn't mean you're going to go to bed each night at that time. You might sit in bed for an hour and just laying there awake. They say one of the best things you can do is go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time for great sleep. Now, last night, I'll tell you, I woke up at like 4:30 to go use the bathroom, and I couldn't go back to sleep till 6 a.m. And so it was frustrating for me because I love getting great sleep. But it's just something you need to understand, that having those goals this year will help you assess how well you are doing on that path. And the more granular you can get on certain things on a day-to-day basis, the better you can get to see over longevity. Okay, so then the last one. So we talked about MT goals. We talked about kind of like biology a little bit more. Dopamine's the biggest thing you need to understand about the biology portion of reaching your goals. And that's from Andrew Huberman. And then the last one is from Graham Weaver. I love the information and the stuff that Graham puts out because it's super helpful with people trying to like find themselves on their path. He's a teacher at the Stanford Graduate School, and I'm sure he talks to a lot of guys and girls that are trying to reach big goals. And so it's helpful. I'm sure he's really done a lot of deep diving into helping people reach their goals. And so he says, and I quote, do the thing you'd be doing if you knew you couldn't fail. And I like that because when you think about that, if you knew you couldn't fail, what would you be doing? And honestly, that's how I think about fly bodies. Or, maybe 10 years ago, that was trying to go to the Olympics for me. But now I'm like, man, if I knew I couldn't fail, I would be doing fly bodies for sure. 100%. That's what I would be doing because I love the fitness industry. I think the world needs more clarity around the fitness industry and wellness and how to live healthy lives so that we can be successful and reach goals. So that's one of his quotes is, do the thing you do if you know you couldn't fail. Love that quote. And he says it might be much longer than you think to reach that goal. It might be much tougher than you think when you do that. And you'll have your ups and downs. Okay. It's not going to be perfect, but you'll be doing something that you're very excited about doing. And so you'll wake up every day trying to reach that goal. All right. The other thing he says, why setting big goals gives you a greater chance of success than a moderate goal. He said, you show up differently when you're excited. If the goal's not big enough, you're not going to be super excited. Like going to the Olympics was a big goal, but I was always very excited to go train because I was like, man, I really want to do it. Now, I didn't go to the Olympics, shocker, but it was always something that kind of motivated me to want to work out as hard as I can and do the best I can in my sport. It says remove distractions. Now, everybody's going to try to, not everybody, there will be people in your lives that are inhibiting you from reaching your goal. And that's because your goal is your goal and they have their own goals and they have their own life that they want to live. But one thing you need to understand is you can say no to people and that's okay. And I say that because people ask you to go out drinking with them. People ask you to eat certain foods. People ask you to go on trips with them. Or there will always be distractions. You have to build that muscle up of saying, you know what, I have a goal that I want to reach and I have to learn how to say no a lot of times if I really want to reach that goal. Okay. And if it's a big goal, he's saying that you'll start removing distractions from your life if you really want to reach that goal. And then he also says that a big goal helps you persist when times get tough. So these all make sense to me because I know that fly bodies is a really, really tough endeavor for myself. And it's a really big goal to help a lot of individuals become healthier. And so that's just a really big goal I have. I know we're getting to the 27-minute mark, so I'm going to try to wrap this up as best I can because I know it's a lot of information. But one other thing that Graham says is the biggest war you are waging in this lifetime is the battle between your heart and your head. Your heart tells you that you really want it. It tells you where your energy is. It tells you where you're going to spend your life at full power. Your head constantly tries to talk you out of what you want to do with fear, doubt, and limiting beliefs. So this is more of the woo-woo type that I was talking about of, it's not MT goals. It's not using your dopamine and biology to tell you exactly what you want to do. This is like, what are you excited to do? What is your head trying to tell you not to do because you want to play it safe? This is more of a feeling. But even with that being said, I love when I hear Alex Hormozy or somebody say that when you have some type of like gut feeling, that means you've probably had enough experiences in your life and like data to tell you, hey, this might be the best decision. It's not going to be the easiest and it's not going to be the quickest to get you to your goal. But this is something something in your body tells you want to do this. And so I like how Graham breaks that down a little bit and tells you to like kind of follow your heart, because sometimes we don't always have the data to back up what we want to do, but there's something about what we want to do that feels right. And I think that's what Graham's trying to get across there. So that's it, guys. Those are the 3 ways that I have helped myself set goals. And I will put all of the videos of these people in the notes section on this video so that you can go listen to them. There are 3 really, really good podcasts and videos that help me kind of set my goal and set my intentions for this year. And hopefully this podcast broke down those 3 different ways decently well. And yeah, I'm excited about this new year, and I'm excited to try to reach these goals. And I'm excited for you guys. You know, every year you find out a little bit more about yourself when you try to do something you maybe haven't done before or go somewhere you haven't gone before. So these can be scary, but they can also be very, very gratifying when you do reach a goal and you say, man, I set a goal, I hit it, it was awesome. Sometimes you're not going to hit your goal, and that's okay. You'll learn from it and set better goals next time. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this video helped you. If you have any questions or have any comments, please feel free to let me know, reach out. And thanks for watching, guys. Get after it.